everybody. Welcome to Hammer Down. I'm your host, Mike Bush. Thanks for tuning into the show, which is hosted on the Market Scale Network. So many of the shows we've done recently, and so many times I start with the same thing. Man, I'm so excited to have this guest. I just met them. I love them to death. They're super rich. It's awesome, blah, blah, blah. This is way different. This is somebody I've known for quite a long time. And I think for folks that have listened to the show and know I have a day job outside of being a podcast host, I work for a company named Talent Logistics in the marketing team. And our guest today actually is the Chief Customer Officer of PortPro, which is the TMS we use at Talent. Toni Careccio, welcome to Hammer Down. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Mike. Excited to be here.
Oh, terrific. So Toni, let's get right into it. The first question I ask folks is, what is the problem that you're solving? And so tell me a little bit about PortPro. What is it you're tackling?
Yeah, so PortPro is, like you said, a TMS, an operating system for the drayage industry. So we provide modern web-based solutions for both asset-based drayage trucking companies and non-asset-based drayage brokerages. So these are the companies that are picking up containers in and out of the seaports and in and out of the rail yards. The problem we're solving for is, drayage is what we call the first mile portion of logistics, and it's such a critical part of our supply chains. And pretty crazy. A lot of these companies today in 2024 are still running on paper, pen, Google spreadsheets, or legacy server-based systems that, have been around for 15, 20 years and haven't innovated in a while. So we implement our software into these drayage operations and help them get up to speed to provide more visibility to their customers, be able to better understand their data, to hopefully bring our supply chains into a more tech-enabled future.
All right. So Toni, I know the answer to this one pretty well, but why is drayage hard? Why is that first mile? Why is getting a container out of the port such a challenge?
Yeah, it's so funny because when we say, we have a TMS, sometimes people hear that and you just think it's a really crowded space, right? There's a lot of TMSs out there. But what's interesting is that a lot of the TMSs that are out there are focused on other modes of transportation, such as over the road, truckload, LTL transportation. And with PortPro, we're foundationally built for, like I said, drayage companies, which is not an area where a lot of people have tapped into, probably because, as you kind of alluded to, it's complex, right? There's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to, picking up and delivering a container. You have to track, when is the vessel coming into the port? Are there any holds on those containers? When does it arrive? When is it available to be picked up? Truck drivers in the drayage industry have to have different licenses to get in and out of the ports. And so there's just more complexity as it relates to the transport of containers.
I make the joke that, so there's here in LA Long Beach, there's 14 terminals. And I make the joke that there's an agreement that nobody will share data with each other, because if nobody shares data, therefore you can't be last place, right? Like if nobody knows what the wait time is, if nobody knows how hard it is to get into a particular terminal, then ultimately at the end of the day, they're all, either great or they're all either miserable. And as we look at, certain truckers there are lots of truckers who go into one terminal to return an empty container and then have to go to another one to grab a full container. So if I go into one terminal and that terminal's 2 hours behind, I can miss my appointment at the next one. And all of a sudden I've delivered an empty container. That's really my work for the day. Tell me a little bit about how you're solving some of these issues.
When trucking companies use our system, they have better visibility as to, when their container's arriving, which terminal it's arriving to, when the container becomes available at that terminal to be picked up. And we've also done a lot with integrating a lot of different features within our system that makes the tracking of those containers a lot easier to do. Booking appointments at the terminals a lot easier to do. Like you said, there's 14 different terminals and all of them are running on different systems. So if a trucking company is not using a system like PortPro's, you can imagine the amount of time and tedious tasks of having to log into, 14 different websites to book appointments, to reschedule appointments, to track when the container's arriving. With our system, when they enter a load into PortPro, just from typing in a container number, they have instant visibility over all of the information pertaining to the container. And they're also able to, with a click of a couple of buttons, automate that terminal appointment and the rescheduling and canceling of those terminal appointments. So really consolidating a lot of the different tasks that they have to do into just one centralized system.
Sure. And as we're talking about, the 14 terminals here, that's LA Long Beach. That's excluding Oakland and Seattle and New York, New Jersey, and the other 18 ports across the world, across the US that we haven't touched on here. So you guys are operational basically everywhere, yeah?
We are, yeah. We are in all of North America. So we're in every major port and intermodal market in the United States and in Canada. We most recently expanded into Europe as well. So now we're in the port of Rotterdam and Sweden and Germany, and we're rolling out into some other Northern European markets.
So your title is Chief Customer Officer, which I kind of love. I think that's really cool. What does that really mean? What is your role?
Yeah, so everything pertaining to our customers, making sure they have an amazing experience after they sign a contract with us, making sure that they're happy throughout the onboarding and implementation of the system into their operations, making sure that our customer support team is, supporting them in the best possible way. And then also making sure that after the company goes live using our system, that we're providing ongoing support, making sure they're optimally using the system in the best way. Our customer success team is really almost like consultants, where they're not just there to speak with our customers about, their renewal and some different products that they don't have that they might be interested in. It's more around understanding their business goals and objectives and understanding how they're utilizing PortPro system and making sure that they're using it in the most optimal way so that we can help them with tracking and achieving their goals.
Sure, that totally makes sense. So last week or 2 weeks ago on the show, Adam Wingfield, I don't know if you know Adam, he's great. He founded a consultancy that said, look, I'm going to help companies go from one truck to operating a business, the point where you're like, look, I'm no longer driving for myself. I'm operating a business. It sounds to me like you're kind of helping in that same vein, saying, look, I'm going to make it easier for you as a company to operate and cover off your drayage needs. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for example, when Talon started with us, they were in, one terminal, the Port of LA Long Beach. And since implementing PortPro, you guys are in, 11 or 12 different markets now. So we certainly help with companies, optimize their operations, just operate more efficiently, which in turn helps them scale a lot faster.
So Toni, last week at DrayTech, you guys had, which is this tremendous show. It's put on by the Harbor Trucking Association. You guys showed off some really cool new stuff. Tell me a little bit about it.
We are in the midst of rolling out our embedded email inbox, which is an integrated email within PortPro system, along with our new AI, which will actually help trucking companies manage their email a lot better by summarizing long email threads and connecting certain email conversations to loads and just help them operate more efficiently so they don't have to go back and forth between their emails, sift through, hundreds of email threads. So things like that we're implementing in May, actually.
How did you get into this? How did you end up in the drayage space? Let's start there. That's kind of crazy to me.
Everyone always asks me this question, and it's really funny, but I grew up in this industry. So in 1950, my grandfather started my family's trucking company. It started as an LTL carrier and evolved into a drayage trucking company that services the Port of New York, New Jersey. and since then has expanded into multiple warehouse spaces in and around the port of New York, New Jersey. So, my mom till this day runs my family's asset-based drayage trucking company. I have uncles that run different warehouses. So I literally grew up going to the trucking company with my mom, running around the warehouse, hopping on the back of forklifts, and really saw firsthand alongside my cousin, who is the founder and CEO of PortPro, Mike Mecca, how outdated the systems were in the industry. I think up until, 10 years ago, my mother had, stacks of paper on her desk and, had to take the bill of ladings and the proof of deliveries and bring them to the billing team to scan in. And everything was just really, really manual. Since then, she implemented what at the time was a state-of-the-art TMS, and it helped a little bit, but it's still one of those server-based kind of legacy type systems that kind of brought her from here to here. And we still saw a lot of inefficiency. She still had stacks of paper on her desk and still was using her filing cabinet. And we really just saw the opportunity to create, more modern, scalable technology, and realized that every other drayage company needed similar technology. So yeah, I grew up in the industry, and it's really important to me, helping this company, helping the industry move forward.
Along those lines, outside of PortPro, I know you're a co-founder of the LA Supply Chain Meetup, or the SoCal Supply Chain Meetup. Look, it seems like you're a bit of a community builder. What have been the cool things that you've either seen or been a part of, to kind of pull the entire logistics or transportation or even supply chain industry forward?
I love hosting different panel discussions with the SoCal Supply Chain Meetup, because like you said, it's an amazing opportunity to, take off our sales hats and just kind of from an unbiased perspective, bring people together to talk about what's going on in the industry. What are the real things happening? What are the real challenges? What are the real opportunities for growth? And so just some of the cool things that I've done is we try to stay in the forefront of new industry trends and regulations. So for example, with the Advanced Clean Fleets rule, where trucking companies in the Port of LA Long Beach can no longer register new diesel trucks into the port registry. They have to be electric, right? A lot of trucking companies were freaking out about this, right? Because it's a big change and there's not a lot of infrastructure and it's really expensive. So kind of gathering different panelists that can speak to what the regulation means and what are the different areas and resources that we could provide to trucking companies to help them with this transition. Like, where can they go to get grants on vehicles, or where can they go to sign up with their utilities? So being able to curate these different panels to provide value and different resources of the trucking community has been really awesome. And just some of the speakers we've been able to get. I mean, we've had Dr. Noel, the COO of the Port of Long Beach, and Paul Bingham, the Director of Transportation Consulting at S&P Global. And there's just so many more really cool people that we've been able to have, attend our panels. But then also just having your everyday, truck driver come and ask questions and sit on the panel and talk about things from their perspective. It's created a really interesting dynamic in terms of conversation.
Yeah, it feels so. I was at Broker Carrier Summit a few weeks ago, and it feels like the LA Supply or the SoCal Supply Chain Meetup feels a lot like Broker Carrier Summit, but more inclusive, not just focused on brokers, not just carriers, but the entirety of the ecosystem. It's a really
Yeah, it's been really fun.
So Toni, one of my favorite questions to ask every guest is, if you were talking to a new or recent college grad, or even your younger self, and you come from the industry, so this is kind of different to say, hey, what didn't you know about it? Because my God, you've been in it the whole time. I'm sure OSHA is going to watch this episode and be, knocking on your mom's door about the warehouse and you on the back of a forklift.
Yeah.
But what advice would you give somebody thinking about joining the industry?
I would say that it's it's a really challenging but rewarding industry to be in. Like I said earlier, when I was explaining what drayage is, right? Our supply chains are everything, right? I think the slogan at the SoCal Supply Chain Meetup, which is a chapter of the Worldwide Supply Chain Federation, is that our world is a supply chain, right? And so when you think about it, you know, the computer screen, the chair, our couch, just everything that's surrounding you was all a part of a supply chain. So when you think about it like that, you realize how impactful it is. And I think a big reason why it's exciting to join this industry is also, like I said earlier, while it's so big and so critical and so important to our economy and just the everyday consumer, it's still very outdated from a technology perspective, from an infrastructure perspective. There's still so much opportunity for growth. I think that coming in and getting your feet wet with really any company, whether you're on a desk at a brokerage where there's a lot going on, to a technology provider in the space that's driving the industry forward. I think that it's just a really exciting time to join the supply chain industry.
Awesome. Toni, if people want to get in touch, where can they find you?
On LinkedIn, you can find me. My full name is Toni Ann Careccio, and pretty active on LinkedIn. You can also look at our website, PortPro.io. And if you are a drayage trucking company or brokerage listening to this, you can also schedule a demo via our website.
And you'll get a glowing endorsement from the team at Talon. Toni, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Mike.
Have a great one.